on the phone, which is fine. We checked it out. It's Marita. We have another.
It's Toby who's on the phone. I am.
No, we have two people on the phone. We also have someone connecting by computer. It says unknown. We need to know who that
Beryl.
That may be Beryl.
Okay. Well, we don't know that.
I know it because I see your face.
No, I don't understand why when I go to join, it doesn't let me type in my name anymore.
I don't know.
That's odd. It's very odd.
Do you have a Zoom account or a Google account?
All right. You'll all work that out. You'll have a chat room on tech. That would be another thing that Shomrei should have. Just a special chat room just for.
Yep.
All right. Just for talking about all this tech stuff.
Yep.
So good. There you are. How you feeling? I can't hear a word you're saying.
Who is this?
That's Jennifer Moss.
Oh, Jennifer.
Oh, she must be better.
That's what it seems like. Good, but you did your camera. You took your camera off and you didn't unmute yourself. Anyway, I hope you're doing good. You all right? No,
I hope you're doing good.
Jennifer, say something.
No, I'm not muted, so I don't know what's going on.
You were muted. You were muted. Now you're not.
Okay.
Good.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome back to the land of the living.
Oh, thank you.
You call this living?
Well, compared
it
to
is. You're right. The truth is, it certainly is. Okay, so here we are. And pass the cookies around, please. Don't take all of them for yourselves. Make sure there's enough for everybody else in this bite-sized wisdom session that we have. And the idea is that we're going to be going through from the beginning, Pirkei Avot. The word Perek means a chapter. Plural of Perek is prakim. And then when we have in Hebrew chapters of, it turns into Pirkei, the chapters of. And then the word Avot is the other part of this title. And the word Avot can be translated in a number of ways. The standard translation is the fathers, right? The patriarchs, by extension, the elders, the old wise people, overwhelmingly, if not exclusively, men in our tradition, and we'll have about 70 sages named throughout this text. So that's the way most people usually translate it. Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. However, in rabbinic terminology, by extension, using the idea that patriarchs are so important and so basic to our way of life and our way of thinking, Avot can also mean the basics. So, for instance, in the law of torts, the law of damages, there's something called Arba Avot Nezikin. There are 4 basic categories of damage. So the word Avot there does not mean a father. It doesn't mean an ancestor. It means a basic category or a basic concept. In the law of Shabbat, we have a concept of Lametet Avot Melachot. There are 39 basic categories of forbidden constructive labor. So it doesn't mean, again, that these are people at all. It means a basic fundamental concept, value, idea. So many people say that that's what Pirkei Avot means also, that this is a rabbinic term, which means these are chapters of the basics. Here's the basics of what we really have to pay attention to as we go through our life. I mentioned a little bit last time that Pirkei Avot is the last of the books to be put into the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the first production of codified teaching by the rabbis, and it came out approximately 200 to 20 CE, so approximately 1800 years ago. And we can see that Pirkei Avot was produced under the auspices of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, Rabbi Judah the Patriarch, who was the head of the Jewish community at that time. and who was a scholar in his own right, but also he was the patron of all of the other rabbinic scholars of the time. He was recognized by Rome. He had very close connections with the Roman authorities. There are all kinds of stories about that. And that's part of what allowed him to have the power to do what he did. In a very fundamental way, Rabbinic Judaism was supported by the Romans after they finally, beat us to a pulp and destroyed our temple and got us to be subservient. After that, they said, "Okay, good. Now we'll let you live your life, and we'll let you do what you want to do." Sometimes, other times there were persecutions. The Hadrianic persecutions happened in the middle of the 2nd century. But by the time of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, by the time of 200, 220 CE, the Jewish community in the land of Israel was living peacefully. Not to say that there weren't struggles, but they were able to then produce a big, gigantic compendium, which is the Mishnah. The Mishnah means the teaching, the review of the Torah, which was divided up into 6 sections. I talked all about this last time. And it gave an overview, basically, of all of Jewish practice. So we can see, though, that Pirkei Avot was tagged on at the end because it names sages such as Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's son. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was the editor of the Mishnah, but then we go already a generation later in this volume. So this volume was tagged on to the Mishnah, and it was tagged on for a specific purpose, which was to say that we understand something called the letter of the law, and we also have something called the spirit of the law. And this tractate is very much devoted to the spirit of the law. There are no laws in here. The rest of the Mishnah, that's all it is, basically, is this is what you should eat, this is how you should make a blessing, this is what Shabbat is like, this is how you observe it, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what Passover is like, this is how you have a Seder. Very practically oriented. Pirkei Avot says, wait, there are fundamentals, there are avot, there are fundamentals of life that need to suffuse everything that you do, and those fundamentals need to be borne in mind as you go through the rest of our Mishnah and the rest of your life. And these are the moral, ethical, and because morals and ethics are interpersonal, the social and political values that keep a society as a decent society. So that's what our little tractate, it's not big at all, has. It also did not merit discussion as a full-fledged topic in the Talmud. When we're studying in the Chevra Shas, like that we'll do in the next session, we'll study a tractate called Megillah. Megillah started out as a tractate in the Mishnah. And it's simply a book that talks all about different topics having to do with Purim and the Megillah. The tractate Megillah in the Talmud takes the Mishnah, and then every single phrase of the Mishnah gets expanded and expounded and gets elaborated, and then we go on tangents, and some people hate it, and some people like me love it. That's to me, the beauty and the richness of our tradition is expressed in that kind of approach. So even though there's an attempt to stay on topic, it doesn't last long, and the whole world becomes the topic and everything about it. So Pirkei Avot did not become a tractate that was given then its own Talmudic arguments and expansions and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, it became one of the most studied and most popular parts of our rabbinic tradition. Because it was small, because it was accessible to people, it didn't have the legal minutia that a lot of the other tractates had. It didn't talk about ritual impurities and all kinds of other details. It was something that people could appreciate and can think about and can talk about. And by the time we get to about 1,000 years ago, we have a custom that starting from Pesach, from after Pesach through till Shavuot, and then the custom got expanded further. The idea of studying the tractate of Pirkei Avot every Shabbat became a custom. So that if you, for instance, own a hard copy of pretty much any traditional Siddur that has the Shabbat prayers in it, for instance, Sim Shalom has it. And I didn't bring that Siddur over here, but here's a different Siddur. This is the Hertz Siddur. And the Hertz Siddur, once we get to Mincha for Shabbos, the afternoon prayers for Shabbat. So after it finishes the prayer part of it, it goes into, here's an introduction, Avot. Here's the introduction of Rabbi Hertz to sayings of the fathers. And then here is his edition of Pirkei Avot with his commentary. So it's right here in the middle, literally in the middle of his Siddur. And so it is with every traditional Siddur that there is. It also became an independent volume, and people have it. It's a volume that can be put in your pocket. You can have big editions. And it's been a beloved part of Jewish study for a long, long time. I want to show you a couple of examples of things that have been produced in later generations. This is can people see this page? Yes? I think hopefully it'll look like a page of Talmud to those of you who are familiar with what a page of Talmud looks like, because this was done in the late 1800s. A person actually went through the Talmud and took all the little pieces of Talmudic discussion and put it for each Mishnah. So he created a tractate of Pirkei Avot. So that's something that that was done to sort of repair the lack that we had. This is a page from the way that the tractate Avot is printed in the Vilna Talmud, and it's in the back of one of the volumes, and it's just the Mishnah, but it looks like a page of Talmud because it has many, many commentaries around the page. I'm just going to put it to there again. So these are different kinds of editions that have developed over time. Different commentaries have been created. I want to show you a nice edition that came out a bunch of years ago. This is an Israeli edition, and this is the way the page looks. The Mishnah is up on top over here, and then there is a commentary written by an Israeli scholar, Avigdor Shinan. And here, one of the nice things is that part of the commentary is to bring pictures in, to bring artworks. So there are throughout the book recourse to artworks from throughout Jewish history, and we're hopefully going to get to one of those today. The idea that we can use anything and everything at our disposal to try to come to a richer understanding of what we have in the book. So the book, because it is ritually studied, there's a custom, let's study it between Passover and Shavuot. There are 7 weeks between the first day of Passover and Shavuot. The first week is taken up by Passover itself. That leaves 6 Shabbatot between Passover and Shavuot, and therefore Pirkei Avot was a perfect book to use because it has 5 chapters. Oops, what do we do the 6th week? The answer is that this is a very early custom. So another piece of rabbinic literature that was floating around that was related to Pirkei Avot was added as a 6th chapter. So that 6th chapter wasn't originally part of the Mishnah. It's called Perek Kinyan Torah, how to acquire the Torah. And it's definitely part of the theme of Pirkei Avot, but it was added a little bit later to make sure that we'd have 6 texts to read, 1 text each Shabbat. Afterwards, the custom started expanding, and some people have the custom of reading Pirkei Avot every Shabbat from after Pesach till Rosh Hashanah. So when we begin studying Pirkei Avot, depending on what edition you have, and do people have an edition in front of them? Do people have something not just downloaded from the web, but a physical book in front of them? Anybody want to raising their hand for that? Does anybody have that?
I also posted a link to the Safaria one.
Right. So thank you for that. Safaria is excellent. Safaria is an amazing website. I've mentioned it before. It has, Beryl, I saw your hand. I'm going to come back to you. It has a zillion Jewish texts. And for instance, with Avot, it has Hebrew commentaries and English commentaries that you can look at. So it's a really, really valuable, terrific resource. Beryl, what did you say you have a book? What do you got?
It's in the Silverman someplace. For some reason, I remember it as 335 page, but I could be wrong.
I have the Sim Shalom.
Okay. So wave that in front of everybody.
I have just the text in the Hasidur HaShalem.
So wave that in front of everybody. Put it up in front of your screen.
Okay.
Where are you? Carolyn, there you are. Eileen, you said you have the Sim Shalom. So can you pick it up and put it in front of your screen? Is that too much?
If I have to go get something, what should I buy?
What should you buy?
This is the first one.
Buy something that's cheap, that's secondhand, but that has a lot of mileage left in it.
Well, what will it be? All right, well, what will it say as the title?
It'll say probably chapters of the fathers or teachings of the fathers or something like that.
Okay.
Or if you put in, Pirkei Avot, even in English, on Google.
How do you spell it?
You'll get it. Pirkei is one way to spell it, but English, English is funny. English, there's only one way to spell the Hebrew, right? So Avot can be A-V-O-T or it can be A-B-O-T-H. There's different ways to spell it. If you look at Amazon, you'll be able to see all kinds of editions.
Okay.
A decent edition. Who just wants? Yes, Geraldine, yes.
I have the text, but I don't have any commentary on it.
Okay.
What would be a good thing to get with that?
So there's a nice, there's a fairly decent edition that looks like this.
Okay.
Ethics, not just Ethics of the Fathers. Can people see that in the screen?
Yes.
And edited by Hyman Golden. And I don't know if it's available or not. It was put out a long time ago by the Hebrew Publishing Company of blessed memory.
I'll find something.
This was copyrighted in 1962, and this has a decent commentary. It has a nice commentary to it. So, and that's the one I have in front of me because it's nice and big print. So that's also good. Anyway, depending on what we have, the beginning of Pirkei Avot starts with chapter 1, Mishnah 1. But because there was the custom to read this, what do you got? And that's now it's too close, blurry. David, bring it back a little bit. Or you're just covering your screen? That's the Sim Shalom.
No, this is whoa. Stone edition.
The stone edition of the Chumash, which has the Pirkei Avot in the back with the siddur.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm not a big fan of the stone edition of anything, but if that's what you got, that's what you got.
I got all of them.
Good.
One in every floor of the house.
Okay. So the Mishnah begins with the first Mishnah, the first chapter. However, there is a custom to recite a teaching as a kind of a preparation for study, and it comes from a different tractate. It comes from the tractate Sanhedrin. My volume is up. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I don't know. So
yeah,
this
I'm working with someone who can't hear. Sorry, I'm not talking to you.
Okay, good. Sometimes I cover up the mic by mistake. The beginning is a statement from the end of Tractate Sanhedrin, and I'll read it to you first in Hebrew and then in English. And one of the things that I hope we can benefit from, if everybody has the same translation, then we all have the same translation. But if we have different translations, then all of a sudden, sometimes some little difference may shed some light on possible meanings of a text. But anyway, this one is Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek la'olam haba. Shene'amar ve'amech kulam tzadikim la'olam yirshu aretz neitzer mata'ai ma'aseh yadai lehitpa'er. So this comes from Sanhedrin, as I said, and it says all of Israel have a portion in the coming world. Everybody has a portion in the coming world. As it says, as it is written, your people are all righteous. Amech kulam tzadikim. They're all tzadikim. They are all righteous. Olam yirshu aretz. And they will inherit the land forever. Neitzer mata'ai. They are the growth of my repeated plantings. Ma'aseh yadai lehitpa'er. They are the work of my hands. This is God talking, saying they are the work of my hands that I am so proud of. So if you have different translations, that's fine. That was my extemporaneous translation at the moment. So the first statement here is everybody has a portion in the world to come. Now, what we don't quote is the rest of the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, which says, and here are the people that don't. However, the people that don't are these really terrible, terrible people, like the people of Sodom and things like that. But and we also say it's not just Israel, the entire world. All of humanity is, by definition, innocent until proven guilty, right? This is a major teaching of our tradition, which goes against certain ways of looking at things that other religious traditions may put forward, that we're all inherently sinners and we need to be saved, or stuff like that. Absolutely not. We are saved and beloved by God. The word saved isn't even important for us, unless we completely corrupt and destroy ourselves, and that's up to us. But we start out and we maintain, if we're at all human, we maintain a standing before God of being accepted, beloved, and cherished, and sustained by God's life-giving force. So God gives us life in this world and in the world to come, because in the end, we're okay, right? That's our starting position. So this was a text that was adopted as the beginning kavanah, the beginning way of thinking about things. So now the rest of Pirkei Avot is, but guess what? Don't rest on your laurels. Just because you have a place in the world to come doesn't mean that you can just now do anything you want. Here is how you can realize, make real, fulfill the life that God has given you and make it as beautiful and as meaningful as possible. So that's the intro to this text. So how about now somebody just reading the first Mishnah? And by the way, just a word of warning for later. Later on, we might get into places where your number of a Mishnah may be different from somebody else's number of a Mishnah, because the numbers of the Mishnahs were never standardized. The chapter is standard, but whether you break up a big Mishnah into 3 Mishnahs or you keep it as 1 Mishnah, that was dependent on a manuscript or on a publisher. So we're not always going to get unanimity on the number of the Mishnah, but in this case we do, because we all are on Mishnah 1, right? Okay, does somebody want to do us the honor of reading Mishnah 1 in English out loud, and we can follow along in our various translations?
I'll read, Rabbi.
Okay, Geraldine raised her hand.
So it's chapter 1.
Mishnah 1. Start with Moses.
Moses received the Torah at Sinai and handed it down to Joshua. Joshua is to the elders to the prophets, and the prophets handed it down to the men of the great assembly. The latter said 3 things. be patient in the administration of justice, develop many students, and make a fence for the Torah.
Okay, so that's pretty much a standard translation. There are little differences in what I had, but nothing right now to bring up as a major point. What's the overall theme here? I'm telling everybody that this tractate is all about morality and all about ethics. What's the opening salvo, right? The opening shot of this Mishnah. What's the opening statement preoccupied with? What is this trying to say?
The source.
Passing it down.
Okay. Yes, Jen. You have to unmute.
Yes. It looks like it's a matter of authority. It's establishing its authority and where it ultimately came from.
Provenance.
Provenance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So provenance says where something came from. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has any authority. We just know what its source is.
Well, I think it's assuming the authority of Moses and then Joshua. That's like an underlying assumption.
Okay. So what authority are we talking about?
Well, it's a reason to pay attention to it. This actually, Moses received the Torah from God.
So what's the Let me put the question this way. Is the authority that's being established here the authority of Moses, etc., or is it the authority of the Torah?
It's the provenance of the Torah.
The Torah. So yeah, I mean, I assume this is the oral portion of the Torah. So yes, this is what these words in the Pirkei Avot are part of what Moses received at Sinai. So they're part of the Torah.
Okay, Sarita, you wanted to say something.
Right. So I was so the idea is that this comes from God, and we have a sort of a commission to pass it on, and also to protect it.
Okay, so these are all implications that we can read into these statements. Is the name God mentioned in this Mishnah?
No, that Moses received it, it's implied. It completed from Sinai, it's implied.
It's implied, but it's certainly not explicit. It could simply have said, Moshe kibel Torah me Hashem. God received the Torah from God. Moses received the Torah from God. That certainly would have been an easy statement to make. The rabbis believed that. So they certainly could have formulated their statement that way. They didn't quite do that, right? So it doesn't mean that they didn't think God was involved, but they chose to make this statement in a slightly different kind of way. The weight of the statement is taken away from God, right? God doesn't overshadow anything here. The place Sinai is mentioned, and the place Sinai has, who knows, all kinds of connotations perhaps for us. I want to show you, and this is an illustration from a Haggadah. It's called the Bird's Head Haggadah, and it was produced in Germany. It's one of the earliest Ashkenazi Haggadot, and it's an illuminated manuscript from approximately 1300, from, like I said, from Germany. It's approximately the size of a regular piece of paper. It's actually 11 inches tall by 7¼ inches wide. And this is this image. And I'm trying to make sure that you can see the whole image. What we have in here are the last stanzas of Dayenu, right? That's why it's in the Haggadah. Right?
Yeah.
So at the end, it says, Ilu natan lano et ha-Torah. Had God only given us the Torah, Dayenu, that would have been enough, right? We actually keep on going and we say, but we came actually, and finally God brought us into our beautiful land. Right before that, we have this. Ilu kervanu lifnei har Sinai velo natan lanu et ha-Torah Dayenu. Had God brought us to Mount Sinai and not given us the Torah, even that would have been sufficient. And that's a pretty weird statement, right? How could that have been any good? The whole point of Sinai is to get the Torah at Mount Sinai. Why would it have been sufficient? The answer, we'll have to wait till next week. So I'm going to say bye-bye, and I hope that we'll meet again next time. Take good care, and don't eat all the cookies all at once.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ta-da.
All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Stay safe.
Thank you.